Welcome everybody to the first ever J Speedway report. My name is Chris Burns from the Loki and Jabroni Show. You can find us on Facebook each and every Monday night, live streaming to you from us, and on audio only Wednesdays on iTunes and Google Play Music. On the other side of the screen, from the deepest, darkest reaches of Massachusetts, is the C part of C&J. His name is Corey Huffnagel. Corey, how are you?
What's going on? It's glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Tell the folks a little about yourself.
So my name is Corey Huffnagel. I am 24 years old from Peabody, Massachusetts, and some of you guys know or don't know that I'm also a NASCAR fan, and so I've been following NASCAR for about 10 years, actually 11 years. So I've been around the sport for maybe around like 11 years or so. So I pretty much got into the sport like maybe around like 2005. So that was like right around when Rusty Wallace was starting to retire, and then all like the veteran guys were still racing at that time. But it's actually kind of interesting because now, if you look at it, there's a lot of young drivers, that are in like the Cup Series, Xfinity, and the Truck Series that are like pretty much like 24 and under. And I'm looking at these kids going like, they got a lot of talent. And, some of these kids, they're running like with really good, with good teams and good equipment. And, like I said, a lot of these kids are going to make it up to the Cup level pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. The youth movement has been huge over the last 10 years. I can remember, like you mentioned, with 2005, seeing at any given race, Rusty Wallace, Dale Jarrett, Terry Labonte, Bobby Labonte, Jeff Gordon, and those are all names that are no longer in the circuit anymore. I mean, yes, Terry Labonte comes back for a cup of coffee. Bobby Labonte will stick his head in. Jarrett's in the announce booth. Gordon's in the announce booth.
Yep.
And the newer crop has become the older crop. Kenseth, Harvick. We've lost, obviously, Tony Stewart to retirement.
Yep.
Others have been there for 10 years. So there really is. The youth movement from, say, 2005 when you walked in till now is completely different. I love the new crop of kids that are coming up today.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, there's this one kid who I'm watching right now, and, a lot of these guys, like, some of you guys don't know, but his name is William Byron. And I remember I watched him last year when he was racing for Kyle Busch Motorsports. This kid only won like 6 races as a rookie. And I'm sitting to myself going like, when he won the first race, I said to myself, okay, show me what you can do, and then, we'll see where it all goes. So he ends up winning 6 races. He goes to the playoffs, and I said to myself, when he was driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports, I said to myself, like, he's going to win the championship. And I remember the second to last race in the playoffs. This was at Phoenix. I remember when Byron was on the pole. He led most of the race. He was probably about maybe 10 laps from winning. And then next thing you know, his engine blew up. And I said to myself, oh, you got to be kidding me. And now he's running for Junior Motorsports. Already has 3 wins this season. And like I said, this kid has figured out, the whole sport like completely. Because, he started off in iRacing. He went to the K&N Pro Series East with Junior Motorsports, went to the Truck Series with Kyle Busch, and now he's driving for Junior Motorsports. Now next year, he's going to be running for Hendrick Motorsports in the Cup Series. So that made me had a question saying like, okay, like, he's going to be like 18 or 19 next year, but the question is, do you think it was too early for him to move up to the Cup Series?
I had that same question about Joey Logano years ago because he came up through the ranks here in Connecticut, ran Stafford, ran Thompson, did a lot of, really great stuff here. And he caught Mark Martin's eye. Mark and Ken Schrader would come up here, do a couple of one-off races. And Logano caught their eye. Now, Logano came up at 19. Logano won his first Cup race before he had his first beer legally. And, as much as, I've taken a dump on Joey Logano, you can't deny his talent.
Yeah.
The kid, you put him in anything with 4 wheels and he is going to tear it up. Do I think it's too early for William Byron? No. He's shown that in the Xfinity car over and over again.
Right.
You could even point to Ryan Preece at the same time. Too much too soon? Probably not. It's just talent. You're not going to find out if you're ready to play with the Yankees unless you go to the Yankees.
Right.
The time to find out you're not good enough for the Boston Celtics is when you step out onto the parquet floor.
Right. I mean, my opinion is with William Byron. I mean, like in my opinion, I mean, it is kind of a little bit early for him to move up to the Cup Series next year. But if this kid's ready, and if this kid knows like the whole like sport like inside out, I think we should just give him a shot. And then you're talking about Hendrick Motorsports, a team that has won maybe like more races, more championships than any other race team there is, I would just say he's ready and so forth. And I think we just lost something here. I don't know what just happened. I think something just happened. I don't know what. Okay, just let him decide. Okay. Everything is good. All right. Chris is joining the call.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's
I don't know
okay.
what happened.
I don't know what happened either. I'm just like,
Popped on my screen, I hit it, and I was gone.
Yeah.
But no, in remembering what you were saying before I got cut off,
Right.
William Byron is definitely ready.
Right.
The problem I have with a lot of rookies that come up, and you can point to Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Danica Patrick, when they first came through, everybody's going to try to rattle their cage.
Yeah. And like I said, the Cup Series, it's a whole different level because, you're racing with the big guys. And, now that some of the big stars are gone, for instance, like Junior's going to be retiring next year. And then, of course, Matt Kenseth, we don't even know where he's going to go next year. So, there has been rumors saying that he could go to RCR. He could go to, any other team whatsoever. But I don't know. The way I look at it right now, and I've probably said this, over and over again, this whole sport, it's already invading with young Cup drivers and everything. But, just think about it. In the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a lot of young drivers move up to the Cup Series, within the next 3 to 5 or so.
And I don't doubt that at all, which kind of brings up the first point I wanted to talk to you about was last week. Was it last week in Bristol?
Yep.
Kyle Busch triple dipping, wins the truck race, wins the Xfinity race.
Yep.
Wins the Cup race. Now, anytime Kyle Busch wins, for me, not a landmark moment. I'm not a big fan. I don't like his attitude, but once again, can't deny talent. But going to the two lower series at any one given point in time, to me, you're taking the spotlight off of these kids that are trying to come up, or even some veterans like Morgan Shepherd or Randy LaJoy, who are out there to collect a payday or two, who are never quite good enough to bubble up to the Cup Series. Kyle Busch is taking opportunity away from people.
Right. And the only problem is with Kyle Busch, like I said, you can't deny the talent that he has in all 3 series. For instance, whenever I watch him on any given weekend, it could be either an Xfinity race or a Cup race or a truck race, whatever. The guy can know how to drive, and he knows how to drive the wheels out of anything and win the race. I mean, heck, there was one time he ran. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. He ran a ARCA Midwest race and somewhere in, I don't know what state it was. So I remember he won the race. And then next thing you know, they found something in the car they didn't like, and I guess it was illegal. They said, you know what, we're going to take the win away, and we gave it to the second place guy whatsoever. But going back to Kyle Busch, if you look at it, he's already the all-time wins leader in the Xfinity Series. And, and he said that once he gets to 100 wins, he's done, But I look at his talent, you can't deny the fact that, he's probably one of the best drivers that knows how to drive a race car. And I mean with the attitude that he has, certainly that, he could change, but the problem is with Kyle Busch, it's, you can't control his emotions and all that other stuff whatsoever. I mean, heck, I still remember a couple months ago at Las Vegas when he had that fight with Logano, and then on the flip side, his whole crew came down and just beat him up and all that stuff. But I don't know, I look at Kyle Busch, he's only 32 years old, and I think he's probably going to win a lot more races, within the future. So, I mean, heck, he's already won a championship anyway. And plus, he has a really good Truck Series team as well.
That's awesome. And I agree with you. Kyle Busch has more winning ahead of him. He's not, he's on the plateau right now. He's come up, he's won, he's worked hard. You can't take that away. But he's on that plateau. He's going to keep winning races. He's not on the downside yet.
Right.
It's to Junior Nation out there, but Junior for the last few years has been on the downside. Matt Kenseth, no matter how hard he runs every week this year,
right,
Matt Kenseth is on the downslide. That's more talent and equipment than it is hunger.
But there has been some races where, Kenseth has been kind of consistent, and I think he's only like maybe a few points like above the cutoff or so forth. But
I'll check that for you. Go ahead.
I probably say if Kenseth, wants to make the playoffs, then he has to win a race within like the next two or so. And then with Junior, like I've been watching him this year, like, this is probably one of those seasons where he just wants to like, forget because, he didn't have a good start, at the start of the season. And there's been like races where, he's had like BS finishes because, something either happened to the car or he got caught up in a wreck. I mean, there was one race I remember a couple months ago at Talladega where he was running in third. Next thing you know, he ends up getting a flat tire, had to pit, and then he couldn't like rebound after that or so forth.
Right. All right. The current standings going from the top is this is just by points.
Yep.
Martin Truex Jr. 1, Kyle Busch 2, Kyle Larson 3, Kevin Harvick 4, Denny Hamlin 5, Brad Keselowski 6, 7 is Chase Elliott, 8 is Matt Kenseth. So right now he's sitting pretty on points. Again, he's going to need that win to stay alive. Jamie McMurray 9, Clint Boyer 10, Jimmy Johnson 11, Ryan Blaney 12, Kurt Busch 13, Joey Logano 14, Ryan Newman in 15th. Right behind them, 16, 17, two rookies, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, and Stenhouse behind them in 18th. But Stenhouse has 2 wins. He's going to leapfrog a bunch of people.
Yeah. And there's a couple of guys that are outside that top 16 that do have a win. Like I think Austin Dillon's like somewhere out of like the top 16, but he's already locked in based on that win in Charlotte.
Right. I like the win and you're in scenario. I never thought it was great when Kenseth took home the championship with 1 win or Terry Labonte with 2 wins in 96. Winning is important. Jeff Gordon won 10 races in 96, finishes second in the standings.
Yep.
The chase because it's not a culmination of points. Well, every other sport has a playoff.
Right.
With the exception of boxing and MMA, every other sport has a playoff. The best of the best get together, you decide who the champion is. This was a good move back in 2005, I believe it was. Or 2003, whenever it was.
I think it was
who was the first?
I think it was 2004 when the chase first started, like on the Cup Series.
Who was the first chase champion?
Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch, correct, my friend. Good job. You get to stay on. You're still hired.
My second question is, how many points did he win by?
I believe it was 1.
He won by 8 points in 2004.
8 points, okay.
Over Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, that's right. Stewart and Edwards a couple years ago were tied, and because of the wins, Stewart takes the cup.
Right.
The tiebreaker thing, all right, you have to do that sometimes, but I think they should have just let those two go out for 20 laps.
Yeah.
Mano a mano, first man wins.
Yep.
Going back to the Kyle Busch point, though, we were at the race in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Do you remember who won the race?
Yes, I did. The guy that was driving the 18 car, which, was Kyle Busch.
Right. Who came in second?
I believe it was a guy named Ryan Preece.
Ryan Preece. Now, if there's no Kyle Busch out there, my opinion, Ryan Preece takes that race.
Yeah.
The car was strong all day, and I think you and I were talking about it quite a bit, is that this kid's got something.
Right. I mean, like...
But unfortunately, you're racing against a guy with 20, 30 Cup wins, a championship under his belt. The guy has talent coming out his wazoo.
Mm-hmm.
He's at the pinnacle. How fair would it be for Aaron Judge right now to go down to AA ball and start smacking home runs for Staten Island Yankees?
Right.
It's not... to me, they used to call it bushwhacking.
Yep.
The Cup guys would go to the Busch Series. Typical example. But then again, this is my caveat. Martin never won the Winston Cup / Sprint Cup.
Right.
Never. He's got a lot of wins on both circuits. He was the winningest driver on the Busch / Xfinity / Nationwide / Heinz Ketchup, whatever they're going to call it next week.
Yep.
And Kyle Busch is now the winningest driver on that series.
Right.
Why can't he let it go?
So why can't he let it go? I mean, going back to like, the whole Kyle Busch and everything, like I said, there's no doubt that, he's probably one of the best drivers that knows how to drive a race car, that knows how to get up on the wheel. But then going back to Ryan Preece, I remember when we were at the race that day, he ends up finishing second. And, to finish second in a Joe Gibbs car, that was pretty interesting. And then,
Right.
I said, the next race was going to be Iowa. So I said, okay, I will bet that, Priest is going to win at Iowa because he's driving a Joe Gibbs car. And then, of course, everyone else, there's not going to be any Cup drivers in the field. So the next thing Priest, I think, wins the pole. He ends up winning the race. I think he dominated that day, too. And then I heard that his next Xfinity race with JGR is going to be at Kentucky. And,
Yeah.
and it's actually interesting because after that win at Iowa, I bet a lot of the teams were looking at him saying, like, we got to get this guy on our team next year. Because like I said, he has a lot of talent in the modified series. I mean, he's won like a couple modified races. I don't think he's won a championship, but he knows how to get it done. Like whenever it comes to the short tracks.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And bringing him up on a variety of tracks, New Hampshire 1 mile flat, Iowa 1 mile bull ring type. Looks like Chicagoland shrunk down.
Right.
Kentucky, mile and a half, almost like a super speed. Give him those little tastes of different styles of tracks, and you're going to have something. My opinion would be don't bring him up next year. Give him one more year on the lower end. Get that confidence up. You don't want to bring him too early, and you don't want to keep him down there too long. I think a lot of drivers came up after too long of a stint down below, and the success never equated.
Right.
So what'd you think of Bristol Cup race?
I thought the Bristol race was good on Saturday. I mean, a couple weeks ago, but yeah, I mean, I was rooting for Eric Jones to win. I mean, he was chasing him down, one by one, but he couldn't get there in time. But I said to myself, like, this kid's gonna end up winning the race soon. But like I said, Jones has been running pretty average this year. I mean, he has been running good, but he hasn't been running like as good as the 78 team is this year. But I probably say if Jones is going to make the playoffs, he's going to have to either win a race or somebody in the top 16 is going to want to like either crash or something.
Right, and I know you and I have been talking about it for about 5-6 weeks now. Right now, you better have something strapped underneath you to beat the 78 or the 42.
Exactly.
They are running away with the field.
I probably say,
and they deserve it.
I mean, I probably say at this point, if the playoffs started right now, those are the only two teams that you're going to have to keep an eye on, during the whole entire playoffs. Because the reason why is because, the mile and a half tracks pretty much play in their favor. Because I know that the 42, I think they've only won like 1 mile and a half this year. And then I know the 78's just been dominant like anywhere that you go and whatsoever. But I would probably say my Final Four right now, if it came down to the Final Four at Homestead, I would have the 78 and the 42. And then I would also have like probably, the 18 and the 48. Because, a lot of people have said, like, don't count out Jimmy Johnson because if you remember what happened last year, he pretty much made the playoffs, but everybody didn't pick him to win because they all said, okay, he's probably going to go maybe like the top 8 or so, blah, blah, blah. So then he ends up going past the first round. Second round, he wins Charlotte. So now they're saying, okay, he'll probably not go to the Final Four and all that. So he makes it in based on the win at Martinsville. And then going into Homestead, they're all like, well, he's probably not going to win. We'll see what happens. But sure enough, the 48 stayed out of trouble, and then they ended up winning the championship last year.
Right, and I love that Final Four thing right now, and we should write it down at some point. Not being a homer for the number 4, but Harvick would be in my 4. I'd also put, if he can find himself a win, I'd have Kenseth in that top 4. Right. Of course, Truex and Larson, that's a no-brainer.
I mean, I've been watching Harvick this year. I mean, comparing to last year to this year, like, he was pretty dominant, like, when the Stewart-Haas team was with Chevrolet. But I would say, like, once they switched to Ford, that had me question, like, okay, now that they're with the different manufacturer, how are they going to do with that with Ford and the Ford Motor Company? I mean, there has been a couple races where Harvick, he ran good, and then there were some races where, he couldn't close the deal, whatsoever. Like, for instance, I remember the second race of the season in Atlanta, and I remember he dominated most of the race, and I said, if he doesn't have a bad pit stop or anything else, he's going to win the race. But then
that's the story of this entire year for him.
But then sure enough, he ends up getting caught speeding on pit road, and I was like, oh my goodness, you got to be kidding me. Like,
Go back to Michigan a few weeks ago. That and again, I hate the revisionist history card, but that race has 10 more laps. Harvick is on Larson's bumper.
Yeah.
And he might not have won, but he's going to be right close. I think he lost by 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Which a track like Michigan is an eternity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a 2-mile racetrack, you know.
But with speeds up to 200, I think they got up to 220.
Yep.
That's without a plate.
Exactly.
I think they should take those damn things off. That'll be another argument for another time. When we go to Talladega in October and talk about that.
Right. But I mean,
go ahead.
But I mean, like, you know, if Harvick's in the playoffs this year, like, I would probably say, like, you know, if he's going to want to win the championship this year, he has to start running a little bit better. Like, I probably say, for instance, like, you know, the 1.5 miles are kind of his strong suit right now. But, you know, since he's with a different manufacturer, I mean, it's going to be a little bit of time, but, you know, they're starting to peak just a little bit, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, for instance, like, you know, the Stewart-Haas team ended up winning the Daytona 500 with Kurt Busch, and the next thing you know, he pretty much fell off the map the last couple of races after that. So, but I don't know. I do expect Harvick to make it maybe in the top 4, you know, depending on how he does, like, in the playoffs in a couple of weeks.
Right, and there's a couple of those tracks that are coming up that really play to his strength. Phoenix being one of them.
Yeah.
Charlotte being another one. Chicago being another one.
Yep.
All places he's had multiple wins at. We're going to talk. I know we're going to talk about Darlington in just a few minutes.
Yep.
And that's another track that in the last few years he started to figure it out. Even collected a win there in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, he's got a shooter's chance.
Yep.
But then again, anyone in that top 16 does. All it takes is one bad day, and basically kiss your year goodbye.
Yep. But I mean,
but hey, you know what? That's the point of the playoffs, really.
Right.
You know, much like in baseball, you know, the Cleveland Indians were hot last year. They came against a hotter Chicago Cubs. Sorry about your luck, Cleveland. You're out.
Yep.
Now you were going to say?
Because if you think about it, like the playoffs, like it's a whole different playing field, you know. Ever since NASCAR came out with this rule, like I probably say with like a few years ago. But the way I love about it is that, you know, it brings a lot of excitement, but not only that, it brings a lot of drama. So, you know, if you go to the third elimination race, and let's just say that, you know, you need a win to move on to the next round, it's pretty much like going into Game 7. Like, you know, mm-hmm. Game 7 in the NBA, NHL, MLB, whatever, you know. And there has been a couple times, you know, where drivers have had to win that elimination race to move on to the next round. I mean, we've seen it like, you know, Keselowski, we saw it with Busch, we saw it with like almost everybody.
Saw it with Harvick in 2014. He had to win Phoenix just to break that, just to go from the 8 to the 4, go to Homestead, Miami, and then basically own that race with, I think it was it Edwards or Kenseth right on his tail?
The one in 2014?
Yeah. I remember the finish.
So I remember that was when Ryan Newman, he was in second. And if you talk about
thank you.
And if you talk about Newman that year, he basically made the championship 4 on consistency. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, a lot of people didn't pick him to win the championship, but when he made that Final 4, everybody was all like, you know, he could probably have something here. And then everybody was all saying, like, you know, what if he ends up winning the championship, you know, without having a win, like, during, like, you know, the regular season or whatever, like, all that. But the thing about this is, like, if you go to the Final 4 at Homestead, you're going to have to win the race to win the championship, because that's what we've seen the last couple of years, you know, with Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick. You know, they had to go
and Jimmy
Johnson last year. You know, so I would probably say that's going to happen again, you know, in November, depending on what happens. Because, you know, you go to that final race, you know, and there's like no points and all that stuff. You just go out, you know, finish like wherever you go. You know, a lot of those drivers are going to take a big risk. Like, you know, whenever it comes down pit road, like if it's like, when it comes down to like 10 laps to go, they're all going to decide like, okay, like, should I stay out or should I just pit? Because you just never know. Because if you do pit, you're going to end up losing track position.
Absolutely. And anybody who's watching this, if you want to chime in on the YouTube page with a comment, what do you think about what we're saying? Is Corey onto something? Has Chris lost his mind? Seriously, your comments are going to build what we do every single week. Quick note to you, next week I'll be late by a half hour, start at 8:30.
Okay.
So all of you people who are going to try to find us live, hopefully next week, 8:30.
Yep.
Eastern time.
So not only we have a big racing weekend coming up.
One of my favorites of all time, Darlington Speedway on Labor Day, back where it belongs.
Throwback weekend. That's what I really love about it. And the reason why I love how NASCAR decided, why don't we do a little bit of a throwback kind of weekend at Darlington Raceway? It's just that the one thing I love the most is the throwback cars, the drivers, like the driver suits, the pit crew suits, everything. Because then, like, you watch on TV, it's like, oh, I remember when this car, had that color. I remember when that guy had that color, whatever, and so forth. That's the reason why I love about Darlington. But
oh yeah, let me run through some of these paint schemes for you. Jamie McMurray with the one inside the one, red McDonald's. We have Brad Keselowski running the Miller Genuine Draft car. Looks just like Rusty's old ride. Yep, Midnight. The 3 is going to run the Wrangler look, but it's under the American Ethanol.
Yep. So going to
Kevin Harvick is running the old Busch car, looking like one of the Yarborough brothers. Yep. And the list goes on. You can find this on the NASCAR app if you are privileged enough to have this. If not, go to NASCAR.com. See some of these fantastic paint schemes. Oh, the Ricky Bobby's dad car. Who drives the 13? Mears? You're not going to be able to see it, bro.
No, the 13, that's Ty Dillon.
Okay, well, Ty Dillon might win my favorite paint scheme of the weekend with the Ricky Bobby's dad, number 13.
And Ty Dillon this year, like, I've been watching him on the Cup side. Like, he has been running kind of consistent, but, even though that he's a rookie, well, I don't know, probably either a rookie or whatever it is, but there was actually one race this year where he was at Dover. He was running in 4th. And then I guess he crashed right at the start of overtime or whatever it was. And that was before when NASCAR announced they were going to put the overtime line back at the start finish line whatsoever. So you go to the overtime rule. I mean, I remember when this came out, I would say a year ago. And this would probably have to do with maybe what happened at Talladega a couple of years ago, during the playoffs that year and so forth. So I guess NASCAR said, why don't we put an overtime line on the backstretch and see what happens? So, but, the big question is, let's say, if there's a crash on the backstretch, and if that driver crosses the overtime line, then NASCAR has to go back to the replay and say, okay, did he go to the line in time? Before the race, before the caution came out, because actually that's what happened a couple of races this year. And, for instance, Indianapolis, where I guess, there was a crash on the backstretch and then NASCAR couldn't tell if they crossed the line or not, but they went to the tape and, sure enough, they did.
I love the old scoring loops.
Yeah.
To me, the electronic scoring loops were a lot better than the overtime line.
Right.
I love the restart zone. I'll say that.
But then
there was nothing worse back in the day of a driver just, I'm going to wait. Okay, now I'm going to gun it. Now within this box right here, this is going to start to roll.
Yeah.
The overtime line I still don't like. I would love to see them, if you get past, let's just use the overtime line as an example. If you get past this line and there's a crash, race to the finish.
Right. I think that's what they should do. But then yet again, if it's a big crash, let's say if it takes out maybe 10 or 15 cars, then they would have to put out the yellow, because then next thing you know, you probably have oil on the track and then everybody's going to start slipping and sliding whatsoever. So, I mean, I do want to see a green flag finish, but then when it's when it's a big crash, on the front stretch or wherever, then you'd have to put out the caution because you don't want to harm any of the drivers and all that stuff whatsoever.
Is all of these rules, do you think, fear from the Dale Earnhardt Sr. crash in 2001?
So, a lot of people have asked me, they said, whenever I see the Dale Earnhardt crash, on YouTube whatsoever, it wasn't really a big crash at all. But I always tell them, that's what you think. But the problem was inside the race car, they didn't have the Hans head and neck restraint. They didn't have the safety belts. They didn't have all that stuff that NASCAR has today. Because back in 2001, they didn't mandate the Hans head and neck restraint until later on in the 2001 season, probably around in the fall.
Yeah, it was optional at that point.
Right. And it was actually one time, I guess I was watching one of the races on TNT on YouTube or so. They said that when Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin and Tony Roper got killed in 2000, NASCAR kind of did a little bit, to step up with safety. But then once Dale Earnhardt got killed, that's when they said, okay, now we really need to step it up and we really need to put safety with the drivers and so forth.
Right, but and I don't want to take anything away from Roper or Petty or Irwin, but you're talking about guys that were on the come up versus the man.
Right.
I wasn't a fan. I have mad respect for him, but he was the man.
Right.
You lose the man. You got to do something.
Right. But then there was
Oh,
like one point, where Dale Earnhardt, he didn't like believe in like safety, like he didn't believe like in the Honda and neck restraint. Like he wanted like to race his way, with the safety belts whatsoever. But then, once he got killed, then NASCAR decided, we have to step it up on safety. So not only they had to do the Honda and neck restraint, but they also had to do the safety belts. They had to redo the safer barriers. They had to do almost everything,
oh yeah.
completely everything.
And for what it's worth, it's working, and I have no
Yeah.
problem with it. It sucks that you lose one of the most magical figures in all of NASCAR
Yeah.
history, but sometimes it takes a loss to make a win. And everything they've done in the last 17 years has been to the driver's benefit.
Yeah. And then
And speaking of benefit, oh, go ahead.
And then if you think about it, like ever since Dale Earnhardt got killed in 2001, there hasn't been probably one single fatality. I mean, there was one time there was one a couple months ago where Eric Almirola got injured at Kansas. I don't know if you remember, but he got caught up in that big crash, with Logano and Danica Patrick, and then that pretty much fractured his vertebrae and his back, and he was out for like probably like 8 to 10 weeks. I mean, when I saw that wreck, I mean, it was a hard impact, but I just didn't think like it was going to have like an impact, on a driver's back or so.
Right. I mean, a lot of those guys, have run hurt. There are stories of Terry Labonte breaking his wrist and taping
Yep.
his own hand to the steering wheel just to be in the car because that's the mentality. That's that hard nose, hard edge racer's mentality. I know a lot of guys have that. Kyle Busch came back, in my opinion, 4 weeks too soon. But look what he did. He won the freaking championship that year, being out 6 weeks.
And I remember that crash at Daytona about 2 years ago. I mean, think about it. He was sliding at like maybe like 150 miles an hour. And then once he hit that concrete wall, it was probably like 95 miles an hour. But then after all that happened, I guess the track president, Joey Chitwood, said, we're going to have to take a lot of safety measures, with that concrete wall. It was our fault. We're going to have to do, something different. So then as a result, a couple months later, they ended up doing a safer barrier on the inside part of the racetrack. And then not only that, they took away that grass that was going into turn one.
Right, that's all concrete or asphalt now.
Yeah.
You ready to talk about Darlington, my friend?
I am ready.
What are you looking forward to the most in Darlington?
The one thing I'm looking forward to Darlington this weekend is definitely going to be the throwback cars. The one thing I love about, when NASCAR goes to Darlington is definitely, the throwback weekend. That's what I really love about it. What's best about the throwback cars is, it just, you just put like your eye on it and you just say to yourself like, oh, I remember when that driver used to drive that car. I remember when those colors were pretty nice. The one favorite throwback car that I like so far has to be the Matt DiBenedetto car, where he has a throwback of Bobby Allison's Miller High Life car, which he drove back in 1988.
Right. That was a gorgeous car, too.
Yeah, it was really nice, too.
And the best part for me, and I'll go to your point, is the throwback cars under the lights at Darlington, to see that black and gold number 2, which, once again, I'll go back to my old favorite, Rusty Wallace. Before there was a Kevin Harvick, there was Rusty Wallace for me.
Yeah.
To see that black and gold number 2 under the lights, just tearing up that egg-shaped oval. I can't even speak right now. I'm getting so giddy. Fantastic. I've been to Darlington a half dozen times. Always a great time. If nobody knows the shape of Darlington, go to your fridge and get an egg. And just hold it in front of your face.
It's
turns
true.
1 and 2 are tight. Turns 3 and 4 are wide. There's a lot of room on the straights. There's not a lot of room on the turn.
Right.
And when you hit that wall is unforgiving. Even with the safer barriers, that wall is so unforgiving.
And if Keselowski can end up winning on Saturday night, you'll be really happy about that.
Oh, yeah. It would be nice to see the black and gold number 2 in victory lane once again. I was going to ask you to make picks at the end, but I'll give two of my 3 picks right now are Keselowski and Harvick.
Mine would have to be probably Martin Truex or Kyle Larson. Because if you think about it, they have been running pretty well in the mile and a half. And those are the only two drivers that I can think about like the most, because they've been pretty much dominant like week in and week out. I mean, if I had to pick one, like I would have to say Larson, because the reason why, like he knows how to run up against the wall. Like for instance, like there has been a couple races where he's done that, like whenever it comes to like the 1.5 miles or the other 2 mile tracks or so forth. And Darlington is pretty much one of them, and it pretty much plays in his favor too.
Oh, absolutely. My third pick might surprise some people. I'm throwing my hat into the Matt Kenseth pool. It's easy for me. My daughter is a big Martin Truex fan. My girlfriend is starting to become a real great Kyle Larson fan.
Right.
She's also a Junior fan. It would be nice to see Junior win too. That would be like my honorable mention, if you will.
Right.
But Kenseth, Harvick, Keselowski, those are the three cars I'd like to see in victory lane. But if anybody but the 18, I can't. I can't right now.
Right.
As we go on, and we do this week after week through the rest of the season, through silly season, through the Open of Daytona in February, right. I'm sure my stance will soften, but I can't.
The Kenseth pick doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I think, Darlington's one of those tracks where, he has run good in the past couple of years. And not only that, he's won a race there back in 2013. So that one doesn't surprise me the most. And I know the 18 is going to be pretty dominant too, because he's probably one of the only Gibbs cars that has just been fast this year. And if you go back, at the start of the season, they weren't even anywhere like on the map. Like they were finishing poorly those first couple of races. But then I probably say maybe around the summertime, like they started like, figuring out the whole deal whatsoever. And then of course they ended up winning at Pocono, then they win at Bristol, and now, you have them at 2 wins going into the playoffs. And I said to myself, like, he's going to be the only Gibbs guy that's going to be the one to beat. Because other than that, the other Gibbs guys, like Hamlin and Kenseth, they're going to be good, but at the same time, like, I don't think they're going to be as good as the 18 car is.
Right. And it looks like the Xfinity Series is also going to be at Darlington Raceway this weekend.
Saturday.
Yeah, right. I'm going through the list now. Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon. Okay. I don't mind them going down and doing some racing.
Right.
Let's see. Reed Sorensen, whatever. Denny Hamlin's going down for that race. Eric Jones. Okay, same. Logano, same. If you haven't won a championship to the lower level. Hamlin.
Right.
Hamlin's been, no. Has he?
Well, Hamlin's won at Darlington. Keselowski won the championship in 2010 with Penske. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Kevin Harvick in the 41. All right. See, now I'm just having a problem. And I'll pick on my own driver. Kevin, if someone gets this to you, what are you doing? There are guys on this list that I'm looking at. Tommy Joe Martin, Mike Harmon, Brendan Gaughan, Jeremy Clement, Timmy Hill, Ryan Sieg, Dakota Armstrong, Spencer Gallagher. These are all names that deserve to have the spotlight. You and your buddies need to get out of the Xfinity Series.
Right.
And do it now. I'm not ashamed to call my driver or my team or even some of my friends out when I smell BS. Get out of the Xfinity Series and get out now.
Speaking of Jeremy Clements, he did have a spotlight this past Sunday winning the Xfinity race at Road America.
I missed the entire thing, my friend. I got home too late.
Now, my big question is, who ended up picking Jeremy Clements to win the race? I mean, I certainly as heck didn't pick him as favorite. I mean, my favorite was originally going to be Austin Cindric because he was running the 22 car for Team Penske. So the reason why he was in that race on Sunday was because he's running the road course race up in Canada in the Truck Series on Sunday. And I've actually had a good background check on him. He knows how to run good on the road courses. In fact, I guess he ran one of the rally car series a while back. But I was actually watching that race, and I remember when Matt Tifft, he was leading, I think with like 10 laps to go. And then as I was looking on the scoreboard, I saw that Jeremy Clements was running second. I'm like, there's no freaking way that he's running in second. Like, I thought it was just a joke at first. But then he was chasing him down those last 7 laps. And I said, okay, if he could get to him by the time, either like 2 laps to go or the white flag, I mean, he's golden. Because when you're running at Road America, I mean, it's a really long road course, especially the fact that it's only like 45 laps or so. But
45, yep.
But what happened was, I guess Tiff was running on worn tires like near the end, and I guess Clements, with those guys that had the right strategy, I think they had like a 4-tire strategy near the end. So he was chasing them down, and then I guess with 2 laps to go, he and Tiff got together, but I guess Clements kept on going because the third place guy was probably like 5 seconds back or so. So then when
Which at the time, I think at the time was Michael Annette.
Yes. So then once Clements ended up winning the race, I said to myself, oh my goodness, like, he's in the playoffs. But, Jeremy Clements Racing, they're a low-funded race team right now. So my question is, how are they going to do in the playoffs? I don't think they're going to make it past that first round, like what Ryan Sieg did about maybe last year or so, because he pretty much was lucky because he only had like a few top 10 finishes. He made the playoffs but didn't make it past the first round. But right. I was happy that Clements ended up winning though, because that team really deserved it.
Now I want to take a real quick look at the standings for the Xfinity Series before we wrap this up.
Yep.
Right now it's Elliott Sadler leading. There's no surprise. There's a guy who's strong all the time. William Byron second, Justin Allgaier third, Brendan Poole fourth, Daniel Hemrick fifth, Cole Custer sixth, Matt Tifft seventh. 1, 2, 3, 4 rookies in the top 10. That's my whole thing with this Cup guy going down.
Right.
If the Cup guys should leave these guys to race. Blake Cook ninth, eighth, Michael Annette ninth, Ryan Reed 10th. 11 through 15, Brendan Gaughan, Dakota Armstrong, J.J. Yeley, Ross Chastain, and Ryan Sieg.
Right.
This has nothing to do with the playoffs. If I click this little button, your playoff picture looks like William Byron first, Allgaier second, Reed third, Clements fourth, Sadler fifth, strangely enough.
Yep.
Brennan Poole sixth, Hemrick 7, Custer 8, Tiff 9, and Blake Cook 10th.
Yep.
So, again, not a bad field when you consider what they're fighting for.
Right. And then also my pick for the Xfinity race at Darlington on Saturday. So my favorite would have to go with Denny Hamlin because he's won a couple of races there before, and he knows how to run Darlington pretty well. Mm-hmm. And then not only Saturday I would watch out for him, but also I would watch out for him on Sunday too.
Can't ever count him out. Once again, I'm gonna go Homer for the first pick. I'm gonna go Kevin Harvick. I'm gonna shock a lot of people, and I'm gonna say Joey Logano. But then I'm gonna say, and let me find him again. I forgot what number he is. You'll have to give me a pass on this one. I'm gonna go with the 51 of Jeremy Clements. If it's not one of the 2 Cup guys, it's definitely going to be Jeremy Clements.
Yeah.
Ran great last week, always strong. I would love to have seen Preece on this lineup, but we're not going to see him again until Kentucky.
Kentucky, yep. And then, of course, the Truck Series guys will be racing at Canada on Sunday, which is at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Mosport. Right. So if anybody hasn't seen the last couple races at that road course, let me tell you, it's been pretty exciting the last maybe 3-4 years or so. I remember last year when Cole Custer was leading on the white flag lap, they come down to like the last corner. So John Hunter Nemechek tried to give him the bump and run, couldn't pull that off. So the next thing you know, Custer got loose. And then next thing you know, Nemechek kind of pushed him like right against the wall just so that he could win the race and stuff. So I remember I was watching that last year and I said to myself, I was happy that Nemechek ended up winning the race, but was it really necessary that he had to shove Custer into the wall just so that he could win? I mean,
no, absolutely not.
Because at that point, he only had like 2 wins, and he was already in the playoffs, comparing to Custer, which he didn't even win a race that year.
Right. Now, that race, guys, is going to be September 3rd, Sunday at 2:30 p.m. The Cup race will be at 6 p.m. That's on NBCSN.
Yep.
The truck race is going to be on Fox Sports 1. The Xfinity race also on NBCSN Saturday, September 2nd at 3:30.
And just don't forget, my pick for the truck race on Sunday. Go with Austin Cindric because he's a guy that knows how to run the road courses pretty well. I mean, he's running the Rally Car Series a couple times, and it's his race to win if he wants to make the playoffs for sure. Right.
John Hunter, Nemechek, obviously, would be up in my picks. I'm not seeing a lot of guys. Definitely going to go with your pick. Yep. Matt Crafton I've always liked, but he's kind of one of the older guard. I'm a big fan of this youth movement, so I'm going to stick with John Hunter Nemechek.
And then another guy that I guess somebody told me that runs the road course is pretty good is Kaz Gralla. The guy that So he's from Westboro, Massachusetts. He's, I believe, 18 years old. Won the race at Daytona back in February, and he's another guy that runs the road courses. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on him as well. And then not only that, I'm also going to keep my eye on Christopher Bell. So even though he's running the fork truck for Kyle Busch Motorsports, a lot of people don't remember this, but he actually ran the Pinty's race a couple months ago back in May, just so that he could have that road course experience.
Right. Oh, well. Life goes on, and we're going to find all these answers out next week when we see you on Wednesday at 8:30. Anything you want to plug?
Well, all I can just say is I'm glad that I can be on this show with you guys, and it was a little bit, challenging at first, just to figure this whole thing out. But I think, with this whole racing conversation and everything, I think it's going to be awesome, and, me and you, we have some really good racing conversations, and I know we're probably going to disagree on some things, but, like I said.
I don't disagree with anybody. No, I never. I'm watching Eddie's eyebrows curl in the producer's box. I don't disagree with anybody ever.
Right, and I actually I just want to point this out that I'm really fortunate that I met you at the racetrack back in New Hampshire in July, and when I first was talking to you about racing, I said to myself, this is going to be pretty interesting. I wonder where this is all going to go, and now it leads up to this. It's just it's pretty exciting,
Well, thank you. I'm glad to have you be a part of this as we build our network from the Loki and Jabroni Show now on to the Speedway Report. I know Loki has his video gaming report. Eddie's starting something new real quick. Plug your Facebook page while we're here, and then I'll do my plugs and we'll get out.
All right, appreciate it.
You're gonna plug the page? You have your fantastic Facebook page.
Yeah.
You're killing
I'm
me
on
right
Facebook
now,
right now.
What is the name of your page?
Okay, so I have a NASCAR IndyCar page on my Facebook page. So you can follow me at NASCAR IndyCar Central. You can just look it up, and I'll also post up standings and results and news and and predictions and a lot more and so forth.
Excellent. And as long as we're here, let's not forget the Loki and Jabroni Show live Monday nights, streaming in your face and in your earbuds. Wednesday is the audio only drop. That's on iTunes and Google Play Music. Don't forget www.lokiandjabroni.com. Fantastic content. Sometimes we put little videos up there. Fantastic affiliate links. If you want to do any shopping whatsoever, go to www.lokiandjabroni.com. Click on one of the links and buy yourself some fun stuff. And if you want to donate to the Loki and Jabroni Show or this show, you go to www.patreon.com/Loki and Jabroni. Tender a weekly donation, a monthly gift, or be one of our investors, which we don't have yet. So hopefully this gets in the right hands eventually. Family. Lots of great stuff going on in the future. This is just one piece of it.
Okay.
All right. For Corey Huffnagel, I'm the Jabroni. The man in the box is Eddie Focus. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Next Wednesday. All right.